So Donald Stojack talks to interesting people, and today I'm actually going to go back and forth with a couple of people, and we're going to go kind of tactical. Okay, so we're going to get out of mindset mode, and we're going to go practical, tactical. Anybody okay with that? And all of us need more clients. We all need to make more money. And no matter what we're doing, there's always more out there. And if you got too many clients, let's have a conversation because you should be able to handle more. So whatever you're doing, it's getting more of that. I'm a big proponent of going after buckets of opportunity rather than just going after onesie twosie types of things. And one of the best ways to do that is not by yourself. Okay, so when it's good to reach out to people and have conversations. You guys all know I'm a big proponent of that, but leverage your expertise and somebody else's influence to get there. And so today we're going to kind of talk about how to get interviewed and maybe how to kind of piggyback on somebody else's affinity with their marketplace. And Richard did this recently, and I think with really good results. And so I kind of want to delve into that and pick Richard's brain, but then Morris Grand is going to be on here in a little bit. Yeah, he's running a meeting that's overlapping with this one, but he'll be jumping in here. I'm going to play like the first 5 minutes of what they did, so we have some kind of context, and then we're going to talk about, well, how do we get there? Would that be helpful for anybody? Okay, so we're kind of in that mode, and I'm going to share my screen here for you, and I'll give you the link for the full video here. But I want you to just kind of absorb the first 5 minutes of it, and then we're going to kind of delve into the specifics of that. So we're going to optimize for video clip. I think I've got it correct here. Okay, here we go. Hold on.
Hi, I'm Morris and I'm here with Richard Kielbon. We're going to talk about a process that helps small businesses find out what their customers really need and how that we can offer them the things that make them take action, respond to us, and click our links or sign up or buy from us. Over the last 20 years, Richard has practiced a process to design architect solutions for governments, for large companies and organizations, and he will show us how the same process applies to marketing and sales. Hi, Richard. Thank you so much for being here today.
Maurice, hi. How are you today?
So tell us real quick, who are you? What are you doing today? And what was your journey to discovering that process?
About 20 years ago, around 1990 or so 23 years ago, I stumbled onto something designed by a professor of industrial engineering called Gerald Nadler at USC, the University of Southern California, called Breakthrough Thinking. And Gerald had for 50 years researched what goes on in the brains, what goes on in the thinking process of noted solution finders, people who are famous for creating, famous designs and solutions. People like the guy who invented the Gossamer albatross that pedaled across the English Channel. How do they think? How do they create solutions? Anyway, that started a whole chain of projects for me using this process. And again, getting behind the curtain of what people really actually need instead of what they tell you they want. What I discovered is what people tell you they want isn't what they really, really need. They don't know how to articulate that. And so my process is one of finding that out and discovering kind of what's behind the curtain and what really needs to be done.
You are spot on. This is a huge problem in marketing, right? Customers, they say what they want, but it's very often not what they need. And ultimately, what do we offer them? What do we sell them? Do we sell them what they want, or do we sell them what they need, right? If they don't get results, they're going to be unhappy with the purchase. But at the same time, we need to address what they want and deliver what they need. So your process is invaluable for businesses and marketers to find that out. Richard, my first question here is, what is this process called? And can you summarize on a high level how this process works?
Well, it can be called a couple different things. Kind of in the popular press now, something called design thinking. That's one way to talk about it. My process, the one I learned from Jerry Nadler at USC, is called breakthrough thinking. And significantly, Clayton Christensen, in one of my favorite books, has called it Jobs to be Done. And of course, I think a lot of people know Clayton as sort of the originator of the idea of breakthrough innovation and disruptive innovation. He's the guy who sort of innovated that phrase. But it's called one of those three things.
The three names are design thinking, breakthrough thinking, and what's the third one?
Jobs to be done.
Jobs to be done. Okay. And how would you describe the process on a high level?
How most people approach solving a design or solving a problem is to analyze it to death, analyze the circumstances, analyze the parts and pieces of it. What creative solution finders do is exactly the opposite of that. They don't dig in and analyze the problem. They have a process of analyzing a potential solution. And how that works is humans are purposes-driven creatures. And Gerald Adler, in his work with industrial design, applies that to industrial design. But as an architect, I discovered very quickly people have also emotional and social purposes that they're trying to achieve. And I think in marketing, that's really important. The process starts by looking for, discovering, trying to understand the purpose of someone's trying to achieve, or Clayton calls it the jobs to be done. What is the sort of the philosophical outcome? And more importantly in this process, your job is to look for the broadest purpose. For instance, a business owner might want to expand his business a certain percentage, and that's what he tells you he wants. But his real broader purpose is maybe he wants to travel more. Maybe his real purpose is to be with his kids more. Maybe his purpose is to buy that Ferrari. I don't know. But there's always a broader purpose. Even within a business, you're going to search for the biggest purpose you can solve, because the larger the purpose you can identify, the more creative you can be. So that starts with that, and then it moves through a couple of steps to identify a fantasy ideal solution.
I want to kind of stop. Isn't that kind of cool? And just Lion, don't just jump off this call and start watching this video because it was so awesome, right? Just stay tuned here. The first thing is not the content of the video, and we might delve into a little bit of that today, but it's actually getting the opportunity to do that. Would that be more? Does that make sense? Okay. So Richard, getting the opportunity to actually do this, how did you go after that, and how did you land this?
Well, as you
how
know,
easy? So how easy was it, or how hard was it? What did that actually take?
well, it was indirect. I didn't call up Maurice and ask him to do the video. I've got a LinkedIn channel that has a lot of stuff that I put on there, and he found something that he liked. And of course, Maurice and I are somebody who've talked previously anyway. We've got a relationship going through a mastermind that we participate in. And really it was Maurice who started in this particular case because he found something I had published on my LinkedIn page that really fascinated him. And he and I talked about it for a while. And that sort of spurred him to ask more questions and be more interested in maybe what the bigger picture is in that regard.
So step one, I'm going to call it laying down tracks. Okay. So I'm going to make this so dang easy you can't avoid doing it. Is step one is Richard actually put some stuff out there. Isn't that shocking? Has anybody heard that before? Has anybody had put some stuff out there, right, that somebody can find? I think so sometimes we're afraid, or we think, will anybody ever see this? Or I don't know, right? But I can tell you, if you don't put it out there, they ain't going to find it. If you put it out there, they might not find it. But if you don't put it out there, they're definitely not going to find it. So what other options you got? Put some stuff out there. Okay. When you put that stuff out there, Richard, was it perfect?
I'm laughing because I think one of the conversations I've had, Donald, with you and with folks at Evans Pagan organization is it's just do it. My first videos are horrifying. I haven't taken them down yet, but the philosophy was just start. And I think I've got a dozen or so videos out there somewhere, maybe more, but the first ones are just frighteningly bad. But as I'm laughing because they really are very boring, very monotone, very bad. But as you go, you get, first off, you get used to the idea of just being in front of the camera. You get used to the idea of, I used to write every word of my script down. Now maybe I outline it more than I write it down. Maybe I don't have a script. I mean, I don't have a script today, but it's a process of getting comfortable. No, it's terribly imperfect. Went through many terribly imperfect steps.
You know, the first time I watched one of Tom's videos, and he does this thing where share this video, I love it. But the first time I thought, this is stupid, right? It's just like, Tom, like, have you ever been like, really? But then now I watch most all of his videos as it comes out. It's like, is he going to do it? It's like, yes. And it's just that repetition. I'm ready for it, right? And so don't overthink it, and don't be afraid to laugh at yourself, right? You know,
That's
so
right.
it's just right there. I mean, Tom, does anybody laugh at you?
Or
Are you
cry at
offended?
yourself when you look at it.
I think they must. I haven't done a poll or a survey, but I'm imagining they must. So I do. So I don't know why they wouldn't.
Yes, so don't worry about it, right? Don't worry about not being perfect, okay? Because that's not the point, okay? Some of the best stuff out there is not perfect. Some of the most success is from mistakes or from things that are misspelled, or we had a bad hair day or something like that. That makes sense. So if you're waiting for studio perfection before you get some stuff out there, it ain't gonna happen. Okay, so you got some stuff out there. Morris takes a look at it and says, hey, it would be cool to talk to you, Richard. Then what?
Well, we talked for a while. I mean, he saw something I published on LinkedIn that had to do with my process that I was describing there. I had taught to my son when he was in high school, and he entered a bridge building competition where you build little balsa wood bridges and then you crush them to see how much they'll hold. Well, I helped him design that bridge by going through this purposes, measures, outcomes, ideal targets. I did that from an engineering standpoint.
Okay.
What does each part of that bridge do? One's in tension, one's in compression. You know, how do we measure a good tension piece? How do we measure a good compression piece? Blah, blah, blah. We went through this whole process of purposes, not from a marketing standpoint, but engineering. And we won this high school. We won in regionally. We won in our region. Eventually, we went to Miami, Florida in an international bridge building competition. We got third place internationally. Now that's in regards to my process, that's important because my stepson, Josie, hates engineering. He does not want to be an engineer. Not as a result of this process, I don't think. He almost got a scholarship. But Maurice read that article and thought that was fascinating and asked me the question, does that apply to something else? And of course, in my business, I'm trying to apply it to other things. How does that apply to something else? How can we use that to talk about how your process applies to other things? So just reading that article sort of inspired him to call me. Hi, Maurice, there you are.
So you told it, but you told it in the context of a story with your son.
Yes. Yeah, it was a story.
So is anybody paying attention? A story. So you could take that raw information that he shared, and I'm just going to fall asleep. But because he's told it in the context of his son, I can tell you, because when I heard it, I felt a connection with some of the stuff I'd done with my own kids, right? And so I was more inclined to listen to it because there was a bridge to my reality. Paying attention? There was a bridge to my reality. Carly just got a keyboard, right? And as she does that and she starts exposing herself, learning to play the keyboard, do you think Donald is going to connect to her more? Because of my background with the piano, right? And as she's learning to play, I almost kind of cringe because she's learning piano from somebody else that's not me. It's like, how dare she? But I think I don't got time to teach her piano, and I don't do that anymore, right? Or, you know, John has just been on a whirlwind trip of Europe and stuff, right? And I've been through Europe and stuff, but every time he posts a picture, and if he goes forward and talks about that, right, it's going to relate to every time I've ever traveled over to Europe, right? Or somebody who hasn't traveled to Europe that wants to travel to Europe, right? Tom has been relating his stories of working in the prisons and stuff like that. And anybody else that's done any kind of prison ministry or any kind of ministry to the soup kitchens or something like that is going to relate to his stories. That makes sense? Does anybody else kind of seeing patterns in there? Okay, don't be so don't put your life in a silo so much, right? That you can't relate to anybody, whatever that is. Okay. Morris, any input there from your end, being the guy that reached out to Richard to do this? Give us some insight. Of course, we're seeing, well, I want to see both sides of that. In other words, Richard got to be interviewed by you. You reached out to him to interview him.
Yeah, I mean, anyone who's creating content knows how much work it is to create content. And so the great thing about interviews is that you kind of have someone else creating content for you, but at the same time, what they say, you can't control what they say. So you have to make sure it's still going to be interesting for your audience. That's kind of the back and forth between, yeah, they, like Richard created the content for me that week by sharing his knowledge and his experience. But at the same time, I kind of have to prepare the interview in such a way that I can be sure my audience is going to watch it, because if nobody watches it, then what's the point, right?
And I just reposted the link to that video because we watched the first 5 minutes of it. And, it's kind of interesting. The other cool thing is Morris does videos for a living. I mean, this guy is a master at it. So, Richard, how much work did you put into actually having that video look so incredible?
Oh, God. I'm embarrassed to say it. Not much.
So you see, you're leveraging it. You let somebody else do the work. I love letting somebody else do the work.
And I love
Tyler
Maurice for having
just
done it.
joined our call late, but Tyler and I have done projects, and I'm going to tell you, as we have associated together, as we bump heads, we says, okay, this is in front of us. Who else can we get to do it, to actually do it? So where you have to be in your business is looking at something and saying, okay, this needs to get done. I need this result, and how do I leverage somebody else doing it? That makes sense? So Richard, you got Maurice to craft a beautiful video. And are you going to be able to use that? Have you used that? What did you do with that video now, Richard?
Well, I posted it everywhere I can post it. That's what I've done with it. Yeah. And I'm so thankful for Maurice. Now, the only prep we did a little bit of prep. Now, Maurice talked about having to kind of craft it for his audience. And I also crafted a little bit for my audience, but it was just a back and forth of 2 or 3 times, a little outline of what to talk about and the direction of the video, where we were going. That was the preparation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the question was, how can we craft a call to action that benefits Richard and is interesting to my audience?
Mm-hmm. The bigger thing for me is when I watched the video, I thought, I want to talk to both of you. Because the point that you hit home on, Richard, and that Maurice was able to highlight, is that the larger the purpose, the more creative you can be. The larger the purpose, the more creative you can be. Has anybody ever talked to somebody and felt like they kind of hit a brick wall with them, and maybe when it came time to convert them over to being a client? Anybody had that problem before? Right. Okay. And I'm going to tell you, there's so many reasons why. Okay. And we could spend the rest of our lives here. And I do spend a lot of time unpacking that issue, but oftentimes we haven't found the larger purpose. We found see, the danger is, is you're a coach, or you're providing, selling a widget or a service or whatever the solution is. I'm going to, put in air conditioning into your house, whatever. You haven't, so let's use air conditioning as an example. You think you found the problem. They need a cooler house. They need air conditioning, right? And that's not it. It's something else. Does that make sense? That's going to depend on a lot of stuff. What are they doing in that house? Spending some time to find that out. Do you know, maybe they have some older people living in that house where having air conditioning is life and death, right? As opposed to just comfort. You have no idea. But until you find that larger purpose, you don't have the leverage you have to find the more creative ways to provide whatever you're going to provide. So it's a no-brainer for them. It's kind of cool. Other thoughts? Anything we're missing there?
Well, one of the things, and Donald, you and I did a video a while ago, and the subject of it was human beings in general are not individual thinkers. Even the geniuses you talk about, I mean, Einstein wouldn't have been who he was without some of his people he talked to and some of his friends. There are many, McCartney and, Lennon and McCartney were not good individual thinkers. So it's not just that Maurice produced the video for me. We were thinking together.
Ah,
We shared thoughts, we shared ideas, and that's what led to it, was the sharing of ideas. And so in terms of what you're talking about in business, sometimes Maurice was a casual relationship when we started out. We're getting to know each other better, but it's not your closest friend. You can only have so many close friends, but your casual relationships are really important. That's like serendipity. You just don't know what's going to click, what's going to happen. So maintaining a nice big network of casual friends is pretty easy these days in this, social networking. And it leads to sparks. It leads to things connecting and coming together.
so step one, reach out to somebody else. Okay, the easiest thing that you can do is reach out to somebody else on this call. Honestly, just if you're struggling, reach out to me. I mean, seriously, if you're struggling, I give you permission to reach out to me, full permission. Reach out to somebody. Okay, maybe they're not a potential client, but maybe there's somebody that you could practice doing a video. Don't even feel like you have to even hit the record button. I mean, seriously, take the pressure off of yourself. Start someplace. Get something in action. Does that make sense? Like, what do I do next? Do something. Is that helping anybody out? And I mean, the biggest factor here is just throwing your hat over the fence and then going after it. Make a decision that you're going to do that. Is anybody hitting a roadblock there that we can help you get over? Because I want to make sure that we don't just get together on Thursday. Oh, isn't that another nice call? But I want to make sure that this is moving the absolute needle, because otherwise we're wasting our time.
Well, you're absolutely right, because when we started this conversation, Maurice was reaching out to me based on what he saw, but that's not the first contact we had. I had reached out to him already and established a little bit of a relationship, and that's really the first step that happened.
Okay. Yeah. Gina, you're being so polite with your hand raised.
Yes, I do this all the time. Actually, I asked Morris to speak for my group, and Morris now and I are friends. And I look forward to every time I see Morris, I always look forward to seeing him.
Yeah.
And
so it worked.
well, yeah, I mean, I have 111 videos on YouTube, and many of them, some of them are my own creations, but many of them are just people I asked to just talk. And it's amazing how many people say yes.
Have you ever had somebody say no?
No, not yet.
But it would be okay if they did. It would be okay if they did, right? But it's
Well,
like,
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's just really great. You get to meet people, you let them tell their story, you present it to your people. You have like a whole bunch of stuff now that you can trot out every once in a while. Like, hey, remember, so-and-so talking about becoming an entrepreneur, and so anyway, I think it's great. I love doing it. I wish that I wish I could do it even more. Right now I'm kind of busy with other things, but to start interviewing people again. I just really enjoy it a lot. So, and then somebody's emailing me and saying, "Oh, I'd like to be interviewed with you." Yeah.
yeah.
My avatar though is academic women, so I'm not like, I'm kind of really niche down. So, and then the other group is Muslim women writers. So,
Yeah. And that's okay. But you see, within that, there's still a breadth of opportunity and stuff, and we should all be niched down to something, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just right there. But don't let that become a brick wall for you. Let your niching down actually be a open window, an open door. If it's not, you're doing something wrong. Okay. If you're struggling with that, get some help, because it shouldn't. It should open massive doors.
Yeah. And Morris has his hand up.
And so does Eric. But let's let Morris
Yeah.
go first. Okay.
No, I just wanted to comment on that, Gina, because you said your target audience is academic women. It's kind of like with Richard and me. He's an architect, but the fact that an architect knows so much about marketing and sales just makes the story way more intriguing, right? If we can learn from other people in unexpected ways, it just makes more interesting content, because everyone expects, another, I don't know, digital nomad to talk about blogging, but an architect, that is just so much more interesting. So if we can build these bridges and make connections with people outside of our standard audience and find this valuable connection that teaches something to, in your case, academic women, more people will, tune in and enjoy and listen.
That reminds me, when I worked with Jay Abraham in, getting to know him, he had so much breadth of knowledge across so many niches, so many industries. I think when I was working with him, he'd always say tout like 400. And I heard a number the other day, it was way north of that. So, of course, it's been 8+ years since I trucked with Jay, but it was his ability to, if he was working in this niche, to be able to find something from another niche that would work there, right? Would overlap or connect or, something there. So the ability to look outside of what you're doing and look back at it, or Gina, talking to somebody who's not an academic or would even approach that, but find something, right? It's right there. Good stuff. Eric, you're next.
Yeah, it's interesting. This is a fabulous conversation. I really appreciate it. I wanted to share, since we've kind of had music in the background here, one of the bizarre techniques that I used when I was teaching, and I was teaching aspiring classical percussionists at the professional level, very high level, and there's no room for not being able to execute perfectly. And I would have students sometimes who would, when it came time to play something in their lesson, not in front of anybody other than just myself, they would just freeze. They'd be able to play. They'd stop after like 3 notes and start again. And so what I tried out of desperation once, which became a go-to, is I would say to them after maybe the second or third time they started, I would say, I'd like you to play this particular passage and play every note wrong. And they would look at me with horror. I said, every note wrong. And they would finally do it tentatively. And if they played a right note, I would stop them and say, no, that was a correct note. You need to play all the right. Anyway, fairly quickly, laughter breaks out. And with that laughter or some emotional release, then the next thing that happened, guess what? 9 out of 90%, 99% of the time, the student played whatever it was absolutely perfectly and probably better than they'd ever played it.
I heard somebody talk about feeling your way to success. Does that have something to do with that?
Yeah, because we're judged. If you can't play more than a couple notes, you've judged everything you haven't even done yet. Mm-hmm. And you just begin to play. And of course, if you practiced, now, if they hadn't prepared and practiced, that wasn't going to work. But they had practiced and prepared so much, they were closed off.
Yeah. And John, not to ignore the music theme going on in the background. So since you got that, you're next, John. What's your comment, question?
So I liked what you're saying earlier about how when posting pictures of Europe, we're bridging the gap to someone else's reality. And is there, say I'm selling insurance. Are we saying that part of the overall strategy here is to just start just being, because I'm just being authentic. I'm just, oh, this is what I do. And it's connecting with people's realities because I'm getting a lot of messages, things like that. Is there a point where, like, okay, you've discovered your market by just being authentic, or I'm just wondering how that works where, okay, here's my market now, just keep doing what I'm doing. You were mentioning just a little earlier in the last question, feeling our way to success. I guess I'm just trying to piece together being authentic, sharing things like Europe, but also say selling insurance if that's what I'm doing. Am I making sense with my question here?
Yeah.
I'm trying to. Okay.
So, Carly, what am I going to tell John? You can say this better than I can say it. What am I going to say, Carly?
Put whatever you're selling on the shelf.
Put whatever you're selling on the shelf. Okay, it's not that. Pitching insurance is not going to make you successful. Okay, it's connecting and have affinity with a given market. They've got to like, trust, and respect you. It has nothing to do with insurance. You know, the insurance, it's the rock, right? No, it ain't the rock. Okay, it is the connection of that person, that agent, with a very specific person that has a very specific reality. That is it. It ain't the product. Okay. It's not Coca-Cola. You've heard of Coca-Cola? Okay. They do not sell Coca-Cola by telling you the ingredients on the can and making that big print. Mm-hmm. Okay. They sell Coca-Cola like, here's a picture of a pretty flower. Here's the picture of a bunch of people singing on a hillside in Italy. Right? Right? Correct?
Best commercial ever.
The best commercial ever. Yeah. It is interesting. We were programming a couple of audience sing-alongs for a concert this Saturday with my wife, and what we were picking, and I was rooting for that one. I said, everybody knows that. And we tested it with the group, Tyler. Do you know what? People don't know that song nowadays. It's like, I was crushed. It was like, so we picked Tomorrow from Annie and Imagine by John Lennon. It had to fit the theme of the concert as well, just not random pictures. But yeah, like I like to teach the world to sing it. Like, my gosh, beautiful. But you see, nothing to do with Coca-Cola, but everything to do with the market. Makes sense? It's like everything. Okay. It's like if you deal with Tyler, you're gonna have to deal with his Star Wars fantasies, right, Tyler? Got it?
I got a bodyguard.
He's got a bodyguard. It's like, and you see, and as you get to know Tyler, yeah, is he a master at what he does? When it comes to social media, this guy is he's the big kahuna, but that ain't it. In your connection with him, you're going to talk Star Wars. If you can't do an Obi-Wan Kenobi, you ain't talking to Tyler, and you're not going to remember him. He's not going to remember you. You don't care, but you got that connection. That makes sense. That's it first. That affinity, and that's where Gina, creating a bridge beyond the academics is crucial as well, because beyond being an academic, what else do they do? Maybe on the side they ride horses. Maybe there's something else. You see, so finding those, it's like, what else? What else?
Yeah, I'm putting in the chat what my strategies are.
Good, thank you.
Like I want to build a brand as a person who supports and uplifts women. And so therefore I have academic women who are turned entrepreneurs talk for 15, 20 minutes. And then I also showcase my former clients.
Yeah, excellent. Perfect strategy.
And then I also have why I asked Morris. One of my academic women said, I need to have marketing expertise for creatives. And then I asked somebody, anybody who has marketing expertise for creatives? And then somebody said, Morris. And so I asked him if he would do it. I was like so happy, and he did such a good job too. So.
And now you know somebody else. Richard's got expertise, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, I can ask everybody.
And do you see all those books on his thing? Do you think he's a little bit of an academic?
I don't have any books.
No. Digi, you're being so patient. How's Nigeria today?
Very well, thank you, Don.
And you're not driving today. Thank you for not driving.
pretty late now. It's almost 9 o'clock. So
Yeah. What's your question, comment?
that's both. Thanks. And thank you, Richard. I like the fact that you say you must dig deeper for the broader purpose. Mine is a quick comment as well. I'm asking, how do you find that broader purpose other than asking questions? It has to be my partner, my wife. I preached over and over again that she has to be physically fit. It never struck a chord with her until I mentioned that she could develop her glutes by doing exercises. And that struck a chord with her. Not all the physical fitness, nothing, but the fact that she could develop her glutes made her become physically fit over the years. And I thought, wow, I've been wasting my time just saying, get fit, you need to get healthy. Nada. But saying, get bigger glutes, instead doing exercises. So I'm saying that was just that was just by chance. I'm asking, how do you find the broader purpose of somebody other than the initial purpose?
You want me to jump in, Donald?
Yes.
It's a lot like, I can't remember the name. There's a famous psychologist who asks basically his clients the same question over and over. Donald asked why over and over. It's getting comfortable with asking the same question. You can't do it like a machine because it makes people uncomfortable. But if you're casual about it, maybe someone gives you an answer and you talk about it for a minute and you laugh a little bit and you ask them the same question. You tell them ahead of time, we're going to do this several times because it's a little bit uncomfortable. It just is. And you have to be comfortable with being a little uncomfortable, leaving some silence in between asking the question, not driving it hard like a taskmaster, but nonetheless, sort of in a very friendly and casual way. Say, in my case, ask, what's the purpose? And then what's the purpose of that? And what's the purpose of that? And I usually have an example that I can give them. One of the examples, well, how do I do this? One of the examples I give is Microsoft. Remember when Microsoft Word was just Microsoft Word and all of a sudden they changed it to work groups? They found the bigger purpose. I'll have a couple examples handed. They went from just selling a word processor to selling work groups. And then that went into something bigger and that went into something bigger. And now they're not selling Microsoft Word. It's just there, but they have a bigger purpose they sell. So if you have a couple examples at hand that you can give people, that helps a lot. So you have to get comfortable asking the same question over and over, but in a creative and friendly way.
Thank you.
Excellent. Excellent. Good session today. Digi talking about preparation. So Richard today, he says, Donald, are we going to prepare for this today? And I said, and I told Richard, I says, yeah, relax, chill. And so the other thing too is being over prepared. And because there's something called the transfer of emotion. And so sometimes if we're too uptight or too prepared, it comes off like that.
Oh, that's a good one.
And not that we shouldn't prepare, but sometimes we over prepare or we over analyze or whatever. We're not creating the machine measurements that are going to create the widget that's going to go into the rocket that's going to fire from the platform to go to the moon. That has to be exact, precise, everything like that. Okay, there's that end of the world. Okay, that's not where we are. Okay, we're dealing with human interaction. Human interaction is not perfect. It's messy. Business is not perfect. Business is messy. So allow it to be there. So many times, I work with somebody that, and they're in business, and they're trying to get it perfect, and which I think is a very admirable thing to do, but don't agonize because it's not perfect, because it ain't going to be. Okay, business is going to be messed. You come into Monday morning, you never know. Is Monday morning going to be calm, or is Monday morning you're just going to be shoveling it as fast as you can shovel it to get it out of the way? That's normal business. If that's happening in your world, you are in good company. Okay. Does that make sense? And as you're reaching out, you know, like Gina said, she's reached out to so many people and they've all said yes, but you know, somebody sometime might be upset and say no. That's okay, right? That's okay. Okay, my friends?